Hi guys, I Aziz welcome you to CoedMaster. So finally, after a very long time, I'm back with another interesting video on JavaScript Runtime. So before I start, let me set some context here that what we are going to learn in this video. So guys, in this video, we are going to learn about the internals of JavaScript Runtime, that how JavaScript Runtime actually executes the script. What are the components of JavaScript Runtime? Like execution context, event loop, macro queue, functional call stack, and so on and so forth. So we are going to learn about all of these concepts, all of these components, and how all of these components sync with each other to execute this script. So I hope you are also excited to learn about the internals of JavaScript Runtime. So let's get started and let's dive deep into the JavaScript Runtime. Alright guys, so let's start this video with the very basic and simple example. So here on the screen you can see that here is a script index.js, and in this script we have two statements. One is console.log1 and console.log2. Now guys, if I ask you that what is the output of this script, then your simple answer would be that it will print 1 and 2 on the screen. And definitely your answer is 100% correct. But have you ever thought that how the script is executed internally in the JavaScript runtime? If no, then don't worry my friend, I am here to tell you exactly how this script is executed inside the JavaScript runtime. So let's get started. So guys, JavaScript runtime internally maintains a set of agents, and these agents are responsible for executing the script. Now you might ask that what are agents? So guys, the agents are like thing or a person whose responsibility is to execute this script. And guys, these agents are also made up of some components like execution context function call stack, a main thread for the event loop, a set of additional threads for workers, for task queue, for microtask queue, and last but not the least, event loop. Now let me explain all of these components one by one. So now the first one is execution context. So guys, execution context is the only context where the script runs. And what is the execution context function call stack? This is the context where our functions run or function executes. Or we can say that in this execution context, the functions are stacked on top of each other while executing. Okay, the next one is the main thread. So guys, this is a main thread which is responsible for running the event queue, and the responsibility of main thread is also for listening for the click events, for doing the rendering of the UI and all of these stuffs. Okay, now here you can see two things that are task queue and microtask queue. So before I explain you what is task queue and microtask queue, first we have to understand what is task in JavaScript runtime. So guys, in JavaScript runtime, whatever code you have scheduled to be executed by standard mechanism, that is called task. So in our example, we can say that this script is a task for JavaScript runtime. Okay. Now what is the task queue? So guys, to execute task, JavaScript runtime maintains the internal queue where the tasks are pushed and picked up by the main thread or the event loop for execution. Now, what is microtask queue? So guys, microtask queue is used to push the task related to asynchronous programming or the async code. We will come to the microtask queue in a bit. Okay. So I hope all of these components are clear to you. The most important one is execution context, task queue, and the event loop. Okay. So let's move on to this example. So what is the output of this code? The output is 1 and 2, definitely, sure. But what is happening behind the scene? So guys, when you ask JavaScript runtime to execute this script, internally it's going to create an agent, and this agent has few components, like it's going to create a task. In this case, the execution of this script is itself a task. It's going to create an execution context for executing this script. It's going to create a function call stack. It's going to create an event loop, task queue, and microtask queue. So these are all the responsibilities of agent for executing this task. Now, how actually this task is going to execute inside of JavaScript runtime? So I have created a task queue here, and this task queue is continuously watched by event loop. Okay, and I hope you understand how event loop works. If not, then let me give you a brief introduction about event loop. So event loop is nothing but it's a continuous loop which watch for the new events. As soon as new events arrive or new task arrives, it picks up the task and executes it. And this process goes on continuously. So this is the main purpose of event queue and task queue. Okay. So here we have task queue, we have Microtask queue, we have call stack, and we have logs. Okay. So what happens when we execute this script? So our JavaScript runtime execute this script one by one, because JavaScript is an interpreted language, so it interprets all the statement one by one. So first of all, the task is the run script. So this task is pushed in a task queue where the event loop is going to pick up this task and start executing it. So it's going to push a script on the call stack. Okay. So right now the run script task is running and the script is on the call stack. And this run script task is what? Running this script. As simple as that. Now, in the execution of this script, the JavaScript is going to see this console.log and it will log 1 on the console. Then it moves one step ahead and it sees the console.log 2 and 2 gets printed on the screen. So once the script is finished, the script is popped out from the call stack like this. Okay. And once the call stack is finished, which means the task is also finished. So the task is also popped out from the task queue. Now the task queue is again empty and the event loop keeps waiting for the new task in the task queue. Okay. So this is how this simple script is going to execute. But let me show you the actual execution flow of this script. So when we give this script to our JavaScript runtime, it's going to create the execution context for this script. Okay. So after the execution context is created, it's going to create a function call step and it set up everything which is required for executing this script. The first responsibility of the main thread is to execute this script until the function call is empty. So it keeps on executing this script until the function call is empty. So this is the first responsibility of the main thread, or we can say agent. Okay. Now what is the second responsibility? The second responsibility is to pick up the oldest task from the task queue and execute it until function call is empty. So this is the second responsibility. Now there is one more responsibility, and that responsibility is if there are any task in the Microtask queue, then pick up the oldest Microtask queue and run it until function call stack is empty. And repeat this step for all the Microtask queue unless and until the Microtask queue is empty. And the next responsibility is to render the UI and paint the screen. So basically there are 4 responsibilities of the main thread, which is under the agent. Okay. The first responsibility is to execute this script. The second one is pick up the oldest task and execute it until function call is empty. The third responsibility is executing the oldest Microtask, run it until the function call stack is empty, and repeat this step for all the Microtasks present in the queue. And the fourth responsibility is render the UI. And after this step, the main thread is going to repeat from the step 2. And what is the step 2? Again looking for the oldest task in the task queue. So this is the actual execution flow of JavaScript runtime. Okay. And there are total of 4 responsibilities for executing the script, for executing the task, for executing the microtask, for rendering the UI, and then repeat the same step. So I hope the execution flow is clear to you, and I hope the components of agents are clear to you. I know the microtask is not clear yet, but we will see different examples and there it's going to clear for you. Okay. So this is the simplest example I have shown you. So now let's introduce some more complexity to this code so that we can understand the internals of JavaScript runtime very well. So let's move on to the browser, and here you can see that I have opened a tool, and this tool is used to visualize the execution of JavaScript runtime. So this is the code I have pasted here. Here we have console.log, we have console.log, and we have one function call. So now we will see how this function is, this script is going to execute here. Okay. And for your reference, here we have task queues where the task is entered. We have microtask queue, we have call stack, and then we have event loop. And as I said that there are 4 responsibilities of the event loop. One is to evaluate the script, then run the task, run all the microtasks, and then render. Okay, so let's start this process. Let's click run. Okay, so the first responsibility is to execute the script. That is why you can say that, and that is why you can see that the first option is open. Synchronously execute the script as though it were a function body. Run until the call stack is empty. So you can see that call stack is empty. But the responsibility is not finished yet. We have to execute this script till the end. So let's click next step. You can see that after interpreting first statement, the one is logged on the screen. Let's click on next step. So here we have a function call. So as we know that function call exists or reside in the function call stack, and there it gets executed. So this function is executed inside of function call stack. Okay, let's click next. So inside this function there is a console.log, so you can see that 2 gets printed on the screen. Okay, after this click next step, and if you see that the execution of this function call stack is finished, so it gets pop out from the call stack, and there we go, right? Now so the execution reaches here. Now let's click step. Okay, you can see that console.log appears on the screen and all the tasks are finished. Evaluation of the script is finished. There are no tasks, so it skips. There are no micro tasks, so it skips. Now we reach to the render step. Okay, so this is the first iteration of event loop. So in the first iteration of event loop, it executes the script and call the function, and that's it. So we do not have any run tasks. So we do not have any task in the task queue, and we do not have the task in the micro task queue. So it skips the 2 step and reach to 4th step. Now again it's going to repeat the same step from step 2, not step 1, because the step 1 is to evaluate the script and the script is already evaluated. Okay, so I hope this example is clear to you, and now you have a little bit clear idea about how this script is executed and how this function call stack works and what are the steps. Now let's introduce a little bit more complexity in this example. Let me show you another example. So let's edit this example and paste another example over here. So now this time we have console.log, we have function, we have set timeout, and then we have console.log. Now we are going to see how this script is going to execute. So let's click run. Well, alright, we are going to evaluate the script because this is the first responsibility of the main thread. Okay, and this script is itself a task. Okay, so let's click step. You can see that console.log1 on the screen. Then we have function call. This function is going to execute in the function call stack. After execution, the 2 gets logged on the screen. Then we have set timeout. Now set timeout is a function, and this function is used to schedule a task in the task queue. And what is the task? So task is nothing but it's a function in JavaScript. So as I said that whatever code we are going to schedule in a JavaScript and execute through standard mechanism, that is a task. So set timeout is a method which is used to schedule a task, and here the task is timeout callback. So it is pushed in the task queue. Okay, now our execution reaches here. Now let's click next. Okay, the 3 is printed on the screen, and the first loop of event loop gets completed and it reaches to 4th step, that is the render. So now the main thread can render anything on the screen. Okay, so this is the first iteration of event loop. Now let's go to the next iteration. In next iteration it will start from here. So it starts from here. So do we have any task in the queue? Yes. So this time let's click step. Now we have task in the task queue. So it picks up the task, and that task is timeout callback. So it pops the task from the task queue and push in the function call stack for execution. So let's see it. Let's click step. You can see that the task pops out of the task queue and push into the function call stack. Now here the execution of this function taking place. Now after the execution of this function, you can see that 4 is printed on the screen. Okay, once the execution is finished, this function gets pop out from the call stack, and we reach the last step because we don't have any micro task in the micro task queue. So we reach the 4th step, and again it's going to repeat the same steps from step 2. and that is finding the oldest task in the task queue. So right now we do not have any task in the task queue. So it keeps on running, the event loop keeps on running and finding the task in the task queue. So I hope now this is clear to you that how the execution of a script is going on internally in the JavaScript runtime and how the task queue is used internally to pick up the task and execute it. Now let me introduce a little bit more complexity on this code, and now we are going to see the final example of this video. So in this example we are going to see how microtask queue works and how JavaScript internally use microtask queues. Okay, so it is as simple as that. We have console.log, we have function call, you already know about it, how set timeout works. The additional thing here is the promise. So now let's see how the promises are handled in JavaScript internally, because it's a asynchronous code. Okay, and as I said that for asynchronous code, microtask queue is used by the JavaScript runtime. Let's click run. Okay, let's click step. Okay, 1 is printed on the screen, function is executed, 2 is printed on the screen, set timeout is scheduled the timeout callback in the task queue, and the execution resume. And then you can see that when the execution reaches to promise, the promise has one function, and this is a promise callback, and this callback has resolve and reject. So obviously it is a function. So this function is pushed in the function call step for execution. So the execution of this function is going on, and inside of this function we have set timeout. And as I said that what is the responsibility of set timeout? The set timeout schedule a task in a task queue. So after execution you will see that the promise callback is pushed in the task queue. So let's click next step. You can see the promise timeout callback appears here, and then the execution moves to next step. And the next step is nothing but to pop the promise callback and then move to next step, and that is the console.log3. So here you can see that the first iteration of event loop is completed, and we start from the evaluate script. We go to run task, then we go to run all task. So in the first iteration we do not have any task in the task queue, although we pushed a task in the task queue, but we are not going to consider that. Okay, so in the first iteration we have pushed the task in the task queue, but we do not have task in the first iteration. It will process all the tasks in the next iteration. Okay, we do not have any tasks in the microtask queue, so we reaches the last step, that is the render step. Now the event loop again going to watch for the new task in the task queue, and this time we have 2 tasks in the task queue, and it will going to repeat the same step again, but starting from the step 2, and step 2 is finding the oldest task. Now what is the oldest task here? The oldest task is timeout callback. So let's click step. You can see that select the oldest task from the task queue, run it until the call stack is empty. Click step. Now this timeout callback will be pop out of the task queue and push into the call stack for the execution. Let's click step. You can see the execution started. So 4 is printed on the screen because timeout callback is executed, and this timeout callback is popped out from the call stack. Now after running this task, it's going to check is there any microtask in the queue. So we do not have any task in the microtask queue, so it goes to the last step, and that is the render the UI. So we have done 2 iterations of the event loop. So now again the event loop is start from the second step, that is the running a task. And what is the task? Promise timeout callback. So it pops out this task from the task queue, push it in a call stack for execution. And what is there inside of promise timeout callback? We have the resolve method. Okay, so which means this promise is going to resolve inside of this function. Let's click step. Now you can see that after resolving we have thenable, and thenable also have one function callback, and this function callback is pushed in the microtask queue. And why is it so? Because promise is asynchronous by default. So in JavaScript runtime, microtask queue is used to schedule the asynchronous code, that is the promises, async await or thenable. That is why we write promises in JavaScript, and as soon as promise gets fulfilled, we get the result back. Why is it so? Because microtask queue is a high priority task. So before the next iteration of the event loop checks that is there any microtask in the microtask queue. If is there any, then it gets executed all one by one. Now we are at step number 2. Now step number 3 is to check if there are any tasks in the Microtask queue, and this time we have it. So let's click step. This function is going to be pop out from the call stack, and we reach to the third step. Now we are going to find all the tasks in Microtask queue and run it until the call stack is empty. So the runtime is going to pick up this task from Microtask queue and push it on a call stack for the execution. Now what is inside this function is console.log. So if I click step, the function, the number 5 is printed on the screen, and the enable callback is pop out from the call stack. And finally, after executing task and Microtask, we reach the next step, that is the render step. So basically, to execute this code, the event loop took 3 iterations, right? 3 iterations. So guys, if you still have any confusion, please go back and start playing this video from this example and your doubts will be cleared. So guys, as I said, that event loop is taken 3 iterations to run this code and it finally reaches the render UI. Now this time we have nothing in the task queue, so the event loop keeps waiting for the new task. So guys, I hope now you have a very good understanding of how JavaScript internally works, how script is executed in JavaScript engine, what are the different components of JavaScript runtime, for example, task, execution context, function call stack, event loop, task queue and Microtask queue. If you still have doubt, then I recommend watch this video again from the starting so that your concept will be cleared. And if you want to learn by reading, then I will put all the links of the reading materials in the description given below. Please check it out.